Urkic Pukish. Okay. All right. We are on Facebook Live. Shalom, everyone. We are in Exodus chapter 2. Exodus chapter 2. I'm going to share my screen. All right, Exodus chapter 2, verses 1 to 10. Obviously, Moses is born, or Moshe is his Hebrew name. Is Jeff and Zekiah present so that Jeff can share his point? We got Moshe's father married his aunt. I pointed this out because I was like, no way. And then I found the cross reference that showed it. So we could talk about that a little bit real quick. Exodus chapter 6, verse 2. So first, obviously, I get that from Exodus chapter 2, verse 1. It says, and a man of the house of Levi went and took as wife, a daughter of Levi, right? The woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him for 3 months. Go figure. My wife was saying this morning, wow, Moses would be the age of our son right now. Yeah. Doesn't he look like Moses? He looked like a Moses. He hairy too. The boy got hair on his shoulders, hair on his butt cheeks. He got hair everywhere.
He's from Shem.
His mustache is nicer than mine. His thing's gonna be full. It's gonna be all the way up there, coming down like a triangle. But Exodus
what was the scripture reference about?
I got you, Ezzy. I got you right here. Exodus chapter 6. I'm lollygagging. Thank you for getting me back on track. All right, here we go.
Focus.
Squirrel, what? Exodus chapter 6, verse 20. It says, now Amram took for himself Jochebed, his father's sister, as wife, and she bore him Aaron and Moses, or Aharon and Moshe. Weird, yes, I know, but so is marrying your sister and multiplying the earth by having children with your siblings, okay? But the law of Moses hasn't been established yet. The law that was established on Mount Sinai through Yahuwah, through Moses, to the people of Israel has not happened yet. So there are distinctions of things that were happening before the law of Moses, and then we just got to acknowledge that. We have to accept that that's fact.
I got a question.
Go ahead. And we don't know the ages. It doesn't mention the ages. It's very possible that my aunt could be my age. That's not impossible, But go ahead, D-Ro.
My question is, are there people like that believe that are in faith of scripture but pre-law?
There's people that believe the law of Moses existed before the law of Moses was given.
Okay, but I'm saying like don't even believe the law of Moses because they believe more like Noah stuff. Like, oh, that'd be.
Wait, I think what you're saying is
I don't like Noahide laws, but not that.
Yeah, there's a Noahide laws. I don't even know how to talk about the Noahide laws. I think Doug would be better at that.
Yeah, never mind.
About the Noahide laws, but there's some Christians that say the law of Moses is done away with, and we're going back to the way things were during Abraham's time.
That's what I was trying to get at.
There's some Christians that say Abraham is the father of the faith, so we're going back to that. And I'm like, okay, so then where's your sacrifices? Because they were sacrificing.
That's what I was getting at. Yep.
We just read about it again in Exodus chapter 1. And also people are marrying their aunts and their sisters and all kinds of stuff. But we're going back to that too? Huh? Yeah, they want to talk about that. Anyways, but no, the scriptures are progressive, right? There's a progression going on, okay? And there is this terminology that Christianity invented called progressive revelation. All right. You can actually see that through scripture. We've seen that as we've been reading the book of Genesis. We've been seeing the Father revealing more and more himself to man. You know what I mean? Noah, Shem, Abraham, Isaac, you know, and Yaakov, right? Joseph. So we see this going on. And I feel like a climactic point is when the law of Moses is given. Standards, morality, this is like a tipping point. You know what I mean? Unless you want to say it's Yahusha, I can go with that too. But it builds upon the past. It doesn't change everything in the past until heaven and earth passes away. That's a whole shebang. That's a whole thing I get into all the time. But if I start right now, we're not going to get past Exodus chapter 2. So I'm going to reserve myself for now regarding this topic of dispensationalism versus replacement theology and all that jazz. But anyways, Numbers chapter 26, verse 59.
You can say that's a cross-reference.
It's just more cross-references regarding this topic right here of Moses' parents.
And Leviticus 18:12 is where you can't do it anymore.
Okay, thank you. Leviticus. Let's go to that one. Leviticus.
18.
This is so hard. Leviticus.
18.
All right, that works. I'm just seeing it with
LEV.
18. 12?
Yeah.
All right, this is where it's forbidden, okay? You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's sister. She is near of kin to your father, okay? You shall not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister, for she is near kin to your mother, all right? There is no marrying your aunts anymore, okay? It's not allowed from this point forward. The law has been upgraded. The standard has been upgraded. And there's more on that in the book of Leviticus. Now, if you want to dump all the Leviticus out, then you're claiming that we're going back to that. And I would find that to be very suspect. It's not scriptural. Next point in Exodus chapter 2, verses 1 to 10, we have Moshe is born and saved. Okay. I don't have any scriptures to that. That's just basically a point that I'm taken out from what happened verses through 1 to 10. Moses is born and saved. And Moshe's name. Jeff, are you around? I don't want to take your...
Josh is missing.
Or Josh. Jeff and Josh.
Yeah, sorry, I'm here.
Okay.
Moses' name, I looked up Moshe, and his name means drawn out, as in drawn out of water, which is a description of how he was found, right? And not only that, but it's a description later of him being drawn out of Egypt. When we see that he's drawn out of water, we look at the definition for water, and water is not just water. Water is also danger and bad circumstances. So it kind of fits on two levels, and I thought that to be pretty cool.
Nice. Excellent. Love that. Absolutely. That's great. I was trying to come up with a follow-up question, but I think you covered it. I was trying to figure out, you guys see a meaning to this. But yeah, I love that.
Talking about how it later relates to Israel being drawn out of the sea.
Me? Is that me? Wow.
I have a further.
I'm looking at my notes. Oh, somebody else.
I think that was Jeff.
I was going to say I've got one little further connection about water and judgment, right? And flood waters. I can actually, you know what? If we're recording, I'll go into it later. I'll talk to you about it later.
And I'm not even recording. Shame on me.
It says live on YouTube.
Yeah, I know it's live on YouTube, but I don't like downloading YouTube. Then I got to chop it up. Then I got to upload it again.
We see water as judgment, right? When we look at the flood story.
Yes.
And I find that it's very interesting that the flood story and the story of creation are actually very identical. We start with water only, right? And then we get a visualization of a dove.
It was darkness and water over.
Right. And then we get a visualization of the dove over the water. And the first thing is that's seen is land coming up out of the water as the water recedes from them and the mountains start to show. The same way as creation, the same way that the water came up out, the water actually dropped. But we see that he sends out a dove, and it's like the spirit hovering above the water, and it's almost as though the story of creation was restarted again in that instance.
Wow.
But that water was his judgment thrown out on the world, right? And I see that Egypt, that bondage is also the same kind of deal. It's also about judgment whenever any of the Israelites are taken into bondage. I know that this early on it was a little bit different, but where Moses is drawn out of water, it's almost as though he's drawn out of all things bad, you know, of the judgments and being brought into the promises and everything. That's all probably a bit nebulous and ethereal, but to be fair, I said I wanted to explain it off recording.
I like your first one though. I like the Noah connection. I like the Genesis. You know, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless, and darkness, right, was over the earth, and then light came, and after light came, then other stuff started coming. After light was the pioneer and led the way. So I like that. I like the, I'm sure water also in scripture has a positive connotation, but it also has this negative, judgmental, dark, gloomy, formless, purposeless, if you want to say, kind of meaning as well. Not purposeless. I mean, it's Yahuwah's judgment. That's a purpose. But yeah, I like what you did, bro. I like that. I'm nodding my head. High five. Bam. Pound. Boom. I like it. Good. I think next was Ezzy, and then D-Rail.
Yeah, so my points was on the name as well. And one question that I kept asking myself over and over again, is it our name that gives us purpose? Or, you know, the names that are given to these people, is it that gives them purpose? Or is it Yahuwah having mercy and compassion that gives purpose to our given name? And the reason why I asked that question is because going back to verse 1, when it talks about a man of the house of Levi went and married a daughter of Levi, Moshe actually coming from the house of Levi back in Genesis 49:7, they were actually cursed. So in 49:7, it says, starting in verse 5, it says, Simeon and Levi are brothers. Their weapons are implements of violence. Let my being not enter their council. Let my esteem not be united to their assembly, because they slew a man in their displeasure, and they lamed an ox in pleasure. Cursed be their displeasure, for it is fierce. And their wrath, for it is cruel. I divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Yisrael. So here we have this curse of them being scattered, but yet the offspring of this cursed generation is the one that's going to rescue or draw them back to Yahuwah. And Moshe's name, meaning draw, to draw out, is literally what he is doing, but he hasn't grown to that potential yet he's been named that, if that makes sense, what I'm saying.
That was a lot, Ezzy.
You know how I get down. I
That
tried
was
to go
good.
slow.
That was good. That's what I want you to do. That's what I expected. I want you to go in on these names and words. Help us out here, because I'm not doing a lot of that. Thank you for that. Anybody got any questions or comments to what Ezzy said? Anything, any feedback? I like that. Chew on that. Huh? I see Jeff pointing at the screen. All right, I'm gonna go with D-Rail. D-Rail, go ahead. Your hand's up.
Well, I don't know if I could top that.
It's all right, brother.
All right, what I got for personally for verse 3, kind of like a mirror image.
All right, let me.
In the Septuagint, it says the mother took for him an ark. What he was put into an ark, right? And an ark is what saved Moses, pretty much, just like the ark saved, Noah and his family, on the water. Also, I see Let me just go to Isaiah 18, chapter 18, verse 2.
Good stuff, D-Rail. I had that in my notes. Very nice.
Isaiah 18, verse 2. I'll say it now unless you want me to wait.
Isaiah
18, verse 2.
18. Go ahead.
Okay, he sends messengers by the sea and paper letters on the water. For swift messengers shall go to a lofty nation and to a strange and harsh people, which are the Egyptians, who is beyond it, a nation not looked for, and trodden down. Now, obviously, in my belief, Moses is a messenger. He comes with the message to Pharaoh. Also, before that, he was sent to Egypt in a way to be safe from Pharaoh, just like Messiah was sent to Egypt to be saved from what's the king's name? You know what I mean?
Herod, King Herod.
Herod, yes. So I see that too.
Beautiful, beautiful, excellent. Absolutely. Also, Joseph went into a foreign land. Joseph was sold into slavery and went into Egypt and became very prosperous and was able to help out who? The children of Israel, his own people. And we're at another crossroad here. Different Pharaoh, a lot of rigorous labor going on, slavery, if you will. And so Moses, Yahuwah is raising up Moses to the rescue.
Right.
Good stuff. Excellent, man.
Shabbat shalom. I gotta go.
All right, D-Rail, love you, brother.
I just wanted to share that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Shalom, D-Rail.
All right, so I had that as well. I had the Ark connection, Noah's Ark, Moses' Ark. I have here, I don't know, whatever this is worth, Moses also being drawn out of the water, prophetic vision of his name as he was drawn out of the water, and later he draw Israel out of water through Yah. Exodus chapter 14. Verse 21. Just give it a shot. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahuwah caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. So the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea on the dry ground, and the waters were a wall to them and their right hand and on their left.
Jeff had something.
And the Egyptians pursued and went after them into the midst of the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and horsemen. Now it came to pass in the morning. Well, you guys know the rest. Pretty much. Then Yahuwah said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea, that the waters may come back upon the Egyptians and their chariots and on their horsemen. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and when the morning appeared, the sea returned to its full depth, while the Egyptians were fleeing into it. So Yahuwah overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. Then the waters returned and covered the chariots, the horsemen, and all the army of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. Not so much as one of them remained. So there's a special connection with water. Moses was drawn out of water. Jeff gave us some good stuff. Also, I just think off the top of my head, I'm also thinking of immersion, being immersed in the name of Yahusha, the importance of that kind of coming out of that water, what happens, what it represents, what it's symbolic of. It's symbolic of our, getting totally immersed in Yahusha, Yahuwah, the word of Yahuwah, which is also the positive water, which is good water, getting immersed in him. But also the coming up out of the water would be coming up out of the dead, out of the death, the grave, coming up from the resurrection. Just as Yahusha resurrected from the dead, so shall we be resurrected from the dead. So there's a lot of meanings with water and the coming out. Did somebody else have their hand up?
I think I said Jeff, but maybe not.
No? All right. What else do I have here? Moving on, verses 11 to 25. All right. Moses flees to Midian. Let's see what I have here. It says, just like with Joseph, a chosen child of Israel is under the custody of Egypt, so is Moses.
That might have been my note. Let me see.
Moshe right for killing this?
Oh.
Okay, yeah. So also what happened in verses 11 to 25 was Moses strikes a man and kills a man. I wanted to kind of, I didn't honestly, I think at this point, I wasn't getting as many scriptures for these points, but what I did want to talk about is whether or not Moshe was justified or not. You gotta help me out. Where we at here?
No, I'm just all up there.
Oh, okay. Whether or not Moshe was justified in killing this man. We saw in Genesis 49, verse 5 to 6. I'm gonna go there real quick, just to recap our Genesis study. And sorry I didn't do chapter 50. I will try to get that up this weekend. My apologies for that. But Genesis chapter 49, verses 5 to 6. It says, as for Simeon and Levi, right? Remember, Jacob is going through all his children and giving them like a prophetic word. For Simeon and Levi, our brothers, instruments of cruelty are in their dwelling place. Let not my soul enter their council. Let not my honor be united to their assembly. That's not good. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they hamstrung an ox. One of the things that this story is referencing is when Simeon and Levi slaughtered a whole bunch of men because there were some men that forced themselves on Simeon and Levi's sister.
One man.
One man? Okay,
Who
so
loved
okay.
Dinah.
All right. So one man, is it Tara? Dinah.
Dinah.
It's Dinah. Tara's a different story. That's another one. But so because of that, one man forced himself on their sister. They were upset, right? Just like any relative would be. And they decided to take it upon themselves to, let's have these men get circumcised so they can, join us. And while the guys were weak, recovering, they went in there and slew all of them. So I thought that was a good thing. I remember when we read it at the end of the chapter, I was like, yo, vengeance is Yahuwah's. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that was wrong what they did. I'm in agreement, And then later on, we find out Jacob was not father. Jacob, the father, was not pleased with that action. And he actually found that to be dishonorable. I guess part of it is, you know how in an earthly sense, military people, huh?
Stop the share screen.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Jeez, doesn't matter. How people say it's cowardly, like in the military, people who fight, people who are in the military, how it's cowardly to shoot somebody, who doesn't have a weapon, or to attack somebody from behind, things like that is very cowardly. Maybe that was also that kind of situation. I'm not sure. But I did talk about how possibly it was the protocol. They didn't go to dad. Dad was dad. Jacob would be the leader. He would be the person to go to, the commander in chief, on what to do regarding that situation. So I wanted to kind of talk about this subject. Was Moses justified because he saw his brothers being mistreated, to say the least? Who knows what excessive force of beating he was getting? But was this justified is a discussion I wanted to have. So I see hands being raised, so I'll go to it. But I have more to say about this. Go ahead, Ezzy.
The only thing I'll say is that I don't think he was justified. However, he is living up to that curse and his bloodline. But we know that Yahuwah can turn water to wine, something that we can enjoy, and he can also turn water to blood, something that, is meant for, destruction. So I think this is a situation where if it goes untrained, it could be very bad. He could start going down an evil path, but obviously Yahuwah is going to turn it to something good. So I don't think he's justified.
Oh, Moses. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I wanted to bring up Phinehas, Numbers 25, just for discussion purposes. I'm not trying to bring a conclusion to this matter. Numbers 25, verses 1 to 13. Share my screen. verse 25, verses 1 to 13 is a story about Phinehas and how basically Israel was sinning, right? Sacrificing to other gods, verse 2. And then let's go down towards the end. So Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, verse 11, the son of Aharon, the priest, has turned back my wrath, right? Because what happened? Verse 7 and 8, it says, now Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it. He saw the sin. He saw that the brothers were marrying pagan women who worshiping other gods. And he rose from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand. And he went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust both them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her body. So the plague was stopped among the children of Israel. And those who died in the plague were 24,000. And then in verse 11, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, this is what Yahuwah said to Moses, the father saying this to Moses, Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, has turned back my wrath from the children of Israel because he was zealous with my zeal among them, so that I did not consume the children of Israel in my zeal. Therefore, behold, I give him my covenant of peace. I find this to be interesting regarding the topic, but I will admit to the distinctions between the two situations. Let's just be honest. Number one, Moses is not a priest that is in, he's a child of Levi, okay, so he is a Levite, but he's not a priest that is under the jurisdiction or under a government or a kingdom that practices laws that abide by Yahuwah's standards, right? Moses is in Egypt. He's under a different jurisdiction, a different government, right? That's number one. Number two, I'm just going off the top of my head because I was mentioning this to my wife. I don't think we wrote it down. He took justice into his own hands. So again, the priest functioned, if you read the book of Leviticus and everything, you know, the priests are like doctors. They're also judges. So they function as the justice system as well. So for lack of better terms, it would almost be like they are police, okay? And so they have authority to operate in this type of, you know, function, all right, for Phinehas to be able to do that. I mean, they didn't have a court case. They weren't on trial. It was just Phinehas got zeal and he took care of the issue and there was a plague going on and the plague stopped. So there is a distinction. Moses is not in the same kind of situation. There is a protocol, and you can expect that being outnumbered, you're in a foreign land, there's going to be probably some negative consequences. Phinehas was he was amongst his own people who were, you know, obedient to the law of Moses. The law of Moses, the 10 Commandments, those things were the law of the tribes. So that's a different situation. So I'm not going to say Moses was justified either. Also, Phinehas was justified by Yahuwah. There was no guilt on Phinehas's part. He wasn't afraid. There was no fear. There's no guilt. Moses, there's fear and guilt. So usually when people are overcome by fear and guilt after they commit an action, it's probably because it wasn't the right choice. Ezzy, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I was going to bring up that too, that he fled, just like in the garden, you know, they fled and hid themselves, which is a natural reaction. So I definitely agree. It looks like Moshe was acting in his own authority versus the priests acting in the authority that they were given under Yahuwah. So.
Yeah. So again, I'm just talking off my head, off the cuff. I didn't write down any notes on this. It's just my observation. I think it's a good thing to talk about. You know, we usually skip over that story, right? Like, oh, Moses killed the guy and then he flees. And then we keep reading the next verses. It's like, hold on, let's think about this for a minute. Was that okay? Obviously, I think most people who read it that are Bible believers are like, no, that was wrong. But again, we read Phinehas' situation and we would look at that as wrong. And then we get surprised that Yahuwah actually rewards him. But in this case, we don't see that happening. Let's see, what else do I have here? Self-defense. Okay, I did have some scriptures for that. I don't know if you wrote it in here. Laws for self-defense. If somebody, the Torah says that if somebody breaks into your house and I think it's at night or something like that, that you have the right to kill him. And you be justified. No court necessary. Let me see if I can find that. Let's see. See, nope, I'm not gonna find it this way. Never mind, I'm not gonna find it. Should have wrote it down. It's all good. What else do we have? Do you have some stuff?
No, now going to 11 to 15. 16 to 22, Moshe's journey in Midian.
Let's go to Exodus chapter 2, verse what?
16.
16.
Oh, did want to note, just the lineage wise, that Midian, because it says Moshe's journey in Midian, right? So Genesis 25, verses 1 to 5 notes that Midian.
Yeah, we did have more stuff.
Yeah, there's a whole thing. That Midian is the son of Abraham with his wife Keturah. So just going through, like, these are still within the family line. This just not within Isaac and Yaakov. So I thought that was interesting.
Exodus chapter 2, verse 11 to 15. There's some more stuff going on in here. Moses flees to Midian. Midian means strife. Okay, that's what we found. Midian means strife. Midian's name was given back in Genesis 25 when the actual Midian, the person, was born. All right, so it probably has something to do with the birth, but it might be also prophetic of what's going on in Moses' life. So just to give it a shot, Moses flees. I think it's Moses that is striving right now. He has strife within himself. He just killed a man and he's fleeing away. It could also have something to do with the Israelites going through what they're going through. But Ezzy, what do you think? I have more to say on verses 11 to 15, but what do you?
No. Finish. It's finish.
Okay. I have
Skip this side.
what?
Just skip these notes.
Skip these notes here?
Skip those notes.
Okay. So then that's it then for verses 11 to 15 for me. Ezzy, what do you have?
I was just gonna say, I think it's interesting how there were two scenarios before Yahuwah actually appears to him of him rescuing people. One, he even though he killed a man, Moshe was rescuing a man, but here we are at this well where he's about to rescue these women without killing someone. So I just think it's interesting how he is now outside of the land of Egypt and he is in the land of Abraham's descendants. And there's another situation where he has an opportunity to rescue, but it's more of for the good. It's on a good side, more positive side.
All right. Let's see here, verses 16 to 22. 16 to 22. I have some notes here. Moshe's journey in Midian. He meets with the priest of Midian. I found that to be, again, just as when we hear this word priest before the law of Moses, it's just my brain can't really wrap and comprehend this concept before the law of Moses. But knowing the function of a priest is a mediator between God and men. That's one of the functions of a priest. And I just find it astounding that they were people. First of all, Midian. Let's do a little genealogy of Midian. Genesis chapter 25. Real quick. Let's go back real quick. 25 verses 1 to 5. Recap. Abraham again took a wife, and her name was Keturah, and she bore him Zimram, Yokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Yokshan begot Sheba and Dedan, and the sons of Dedan were those, right? And the sons of Midian were, there's a list of the sons of Midian. All these were the children of Keturah. And Abraham gave all that he had to Isaac, but Abraham gave gifts to the sons of the concubine, Keturah, which Abraham had, and while he was still living, he sent them eastward away from Isaac his son to the country of the east. So these are children of Abraham, who is a God-fearer, and I just find it astounding that this Abraham encountered a priest of Shiloh, right? No, a priest of
Melchizedek.
Salem, king of Salem, right? And
Yes.
so again, I just find this astounding. Like we talk about this just as entertainment for ourselves. Just was that Yahusha that he encountered? But it's very interesting that away from Abraham's presence, his descendants from a concubine are practicing priesthood, and I'm not sure to what degree they were doing that. If it was in alignment with what Abraham believed, or if it was off course. I didn't really look into it.
I'm gonna say it's off course.
Okay.
Because the woman that that Phineas killed was a Midianite woman.
Okay.
We go back to Numbers 25, and
All
it was
right.
like there's a link between Moab and the
Midianites.
Midianites. And Moab was the one that went to Midian, and I'm talking about as in a people, to go curse Israel. So that's a lot through Numbers 25. That's why I was trying to get those side notes, but that's why I said skip them, because I didn't finish going through the lineage.
All right.
I also agree with it being off course because one of the references I have for this person that he meets is Genesis 36:4. So he's in the land of Abraham's descendants. However, he's meeting with relatives of Esau.
Now Adab bore Eliphaz to Esau, and Basemath bore Reuel. Reuel is a descendant of Esau. Right? We reading that right? Is that the Esau that we're thinking of?
Yeah, he's the
Good job, Ezzy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I said good job. Yep.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And his name, in case you don't know, his name means friend of God, which I found interesting.
Yes, I saw that. Friend of God, because he would help, a messenger of God, right? Moshe.
Right.
So we're still on 16 to 22, Exodus 2. Notes on Exodus 2, 16 to 22. Let's see. You did the Reuel means friend of God. Exodus 3:1 I have here as a note. And then for verse 19.
You sure it's the same real? You have to look at that.
You have to look into it. Confirm that. Verse 19. And they said, an Egyptian delivered us from the hand of the shepherds, and he also drew enough water for us and watered the flock. Listen, it's very possible here that they recognized him as an Egyptian by pure appearance, right? It's very possible. It's also possible that after Moses delivered them, he had a chit chat with the women and got to introduce himself. So they got to know who he was. And so they spread the word that he came from Egypt. So there's different debates on it that, this proves that Hebrews were black because they looked like Egyptians. Well, Egyptians were also light-skinned, and they were people of different shades of color as well. So I'm all about the possibility of a certain colored demographic of people, but I'm not going to limit to one colored demographic of people. Ezzy, what do you think?
I cannot believe that's a true argument, but I was just going to say, can we just go off of the fact that he fled in fear? So maybe he didn't even change his clothes, because Egyptians wear certain kind of clothes, and he was of the royal or the kingship, whatever. So maybe he had certain clothes realistically that kind of identifies him as an Egyptian. I would think that.
Yeah, but like we're not getting what happened in between the saving is what I'm trying to say. So it's all theory, really.
True.
Hypothetically, just it's very plausible. Your point is plausible. I thought of that as well. He's shaved, he's clean shaven, he probably has the whatever the case might be, what they do. And yeah, he's probably got all the nice jewelry because he was a little royalty, right? Moses was raised by the daughter of Pharaoh. Wasn't somebody the daughter of a priest?
You think
That was
about
Joseph.
Joseph married
the daughter of a priest.
of Ammon.
Yeah, and Moses married the daughter of a priest of Midian.
Mhm.
That was another connection made. Yeah, it's in the notes. I know I'm getting off track. All right.
Mhm.
But yeah, so it's just something to think about. But I think it's sad when people start making doctrines out of this, and that's what the Black Hebrew Israelite community does. They make a doctrine out of verses like this, or they at least use this as one of their doctrines to prove that the Israelites were Black. That's why I mentioned this, as he is pretty much to debunk, that racist gospel that they preach. What else? Verse 19. I got a lot of notes. I think that's for the next verse. Verse 20. It says, so he said to his daughters, and where is he? Why is it that you have left the man? Call him that he may eat bread. I wanted to highlight hospitality. I think that's a beautiful thing. I don't know if it's cultural during that time. I know some people would say it is cultural in the Middle East. Hospitality is very serious, inviting people over, eating their food. If you don't eat their food, is disrespectful, different types of stuff like that. Where in America, it's a little loose. We have a mixture of different ethnicities over here and cultures. But hospitality. So I got some scriptures on that. Isaiah 58:7. Says, is it not to share your bread? So this is talking about fasting, right? What's the true fast that Yahuwah cares about? He says, is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and that you bring to your house the poor who are cast out? When you see the naked, that you cover him, and not hide yourself from your own flesh? 1 Timothy 5:10. Says, I'll start with verse 9. Do not let a widow under 60 years old be taken into the number, and not unless she has been the wife of one man, well reported for good works, if she has brought up children, if she has lodged strangers, if she has washed the saints' feet, if she has relieved the afflicted, if she has diligently followed every good work. There seems to be a serious standard for widows and what was their reputation. So that's very interesting. I find it to be very interesting. And this is our scriptures that we believe in. So it shouldn't just be interesting. It should be something that we should aim towards observing. Hospitality is not just for the women. Titus chapter 1, verse 8. In case people are thinking that, I got another verse lined up. Don't get it twisted. This whole thing is the qualifications for elders in the assembly. And one of them, I'll start from verse 7. It says here, for an overseer, I really don't like using the word bishop. That's not really in my vocabulary. I do like the word overseer better. But an overseer must be blameless as a steward of God, not self-willed, not quick-tempered, not given to wine, not violent, not greedy for money, but hospitable. It's one of the first things that he should be. A lover of what is good, sober-minded, just, holy, self-controlled, holding fast the faithful word as he has been taught, that he may be able, by sound doctrine, both to exhort and convict those who contradict. So hospitality is a qualification for a leader in an assembly. If you have a leader in your assembly and they don't offer you water or anything when you go in their house, you better bring this scripture up to him. Like, listen, bro, you need to get your hospitality game up a little bit more, man. Like, I was hungry. I was waiting for you. You know what I'm saying? This is a really, really, really important thing. It's more than just water, but when people are in need, it's not just, hey, brother, I'll pray for you. Hold up, you the overseer of this assembly. I'm a brother in your assembly. I'm struggling. You just gonna say I'm gonna pray for you? You ain't even gonna offer me a bed for a night, at least a night. I'm not saying you gotta, and don't get it twisted too. I'm not saying you gotta have a wide open door for every single person and be nilly-willy with it and just let anybody up in your house. I'm not talking about using foolishness, okay? The spirit of dumb. Use a little wisdom. You do want to make sure you're being led by the spirit. The spirit's tugging on your heart to help this person. If the spirit ain't tugging on you, you better investigate and ask some questions and make sure the person coming in your house is somebody that, that you approve of. I got a whole lot of more scriptures. I'm just going to read them off. Leviticus 19, verse 33 to, I believe, 34. So 2 verses. Luke chapter 14, verse 12 to 14. Romans chapter 12, verse 13. I think that was my last one that I do want to go to, if I'm not mistaken. I was like, babe, I want to give you one more. End with this. I think it was a good one. Let's see. I think this is for everybody. This is for all believers. Starts at verse 9. Let love be without hypocrisy. Abhor what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love and honor, giving preference to one another, not lagging in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continue steadfastly in prayer, distributing to the needs of the saints. All right, we got to take care of our own people first. Not saying that we don't take care of unbelievers, but first we got to definitely be taking care of our own. Why is our own house going to be broken up and we trying to help people outside? Given to hospitality. We should be mixed. So it's not just for women. It's not just for elders. This is for everybody. This should be our aim. We should be trying to get good in this area. And I know a lot of people that outdo me and my wife in this area. They put us to shame. To shame. And I be taking notes. Mental notes.
Isn't that good?
It is a
Well,
game.
you got to practice. In order to practice, you got to have visitors. So
Thank you, Ezzy. You can't, if you don't have no visitors, you can't practice your hospitality skills. That's not even a sarcastic point. That is a good point, especially for our people who are internet, based. For real. I try my best to be hospitable while on Zoom as well. I try to offer y'all drinks and, but y'all never want to take anything.
be eating in our face.
That's a good point, Ezzy. Don't get it twisted. That was a good point. We needed to hear that one. All right. We need to start inviting people over our house. Okay. Amen. My wife is like, yeah.
Part of my thoughts.
I knew Milo would like that.
I like my house. Yeah, so do I. With people in it. What else? That was the hospitality. Okay, I'm trying to move on. I'm trying my best. Moses, verse 20. Moses marries Zipporah, a foreigner, not a Hebrew.
That's just a point. She's a Midianite.
She's a Midianite. So she is a Hebrew because she comes from Abraham. So we gotta cross that out.
Sorry, she's not an Israelite.
She's not an Israelite, but she is a Hebrew, right? Abraham was a Hebrew, and so his descendants. Well, it depends which parent you're gonna go by, right? Because the concubine was Egyptian. One of the concubines was an Egyptian. That was Abraham and Hagar. That's Hagar. What was Keturah?
It doesn't. I don't think it ever says Keturah.
That would be an interesting question. But either way, they would be partially Hebrew and partially something else, right? at least there exists the possibility to continue on. Well, they're still Hebrew. They would still be Hebrew. They'll be mixed, right? Just like if I have one parent that's Puerto Rican and one parent that's African American, that makes me Puerto Rican and African American, right? Wouldn't that make sense? So technically, if they are mixed, that's fine, but at least there is Hebrew in there. So I gotta cross out that note. All right, I gotta correct that.
Okay, Ezzy has her hand up.
So Zipporah was a Hebrew. She just wasn't a child of Jacob.
Yeah.
She wasn't a descendant of Israel.
Yeah.
Ezzy, what you got?
I was gonna say I don't think Zipporah had much purpose because her name just means.
Hey girl, you done slammed her. What you got? Damn, you came
Well,
up.
I just want to bring out the point that because
got
there's an argument of was she Hebrew, was she Israelite?
Mhm.
When with the Hebrews and the Israelites, the names that they're given have like deeper meanings. There's layers. There's if you take it back to the beginning, I can't remember which father it was, but one of the fathers, they were named because they were going to be. I'm just making the point that all these names that we have in the Hebrew and the Israelite culture, there's purpose and there's layers to it. Here we have Zipporah, and her name means bird or little bird. I don't know how far you can go with that. However, if you're looking at, the foreign pagans of this time and the different mighty gods, they look towards inanimate objects and things as a form of worship. So that to me kind of lets me know, her significance in this story. If she's on Yah's side or she's going to have a significant role, or if there's really no purpose to her name. That's why I said that.
Okay. I would have to look into, I would take what you said and I would like to look into what happened with Moses and Zipporah's descendants. I would like to see if anything good came about that. I would like to believe it did, but that's what I would like to investigate into to see because if something good did happen, then Keturah served the purpose. She married Moses and helped the progeny, the descendants of the legacy of Moses, you know what I mean? Which is great purpose to be a child of Moses. But
I guess I should rephrase that. I'm just talking about her name.
Her
name having a purpose or a deeper meaning.
She have no purpose in life. Okay.
Forgive me for the slander.
Cool. No, I'm good. We covered that. I was like, dang, Ezzy, that was a hard dagger to this.
Cutthroat.
That was cutthroat, Ezzy. And you a female. I would think you're trying to stand up for the females, I have Genesis 25, 1-5. Again, we already went through that. The lineage. Let's see. Moving on. Moses's journey is very much like Joseph, like parallel, very much parallel to Joseph. They both lived in Egypt. Wife is the daughter of a priest. Joseph married the daughter of a Egyptian priest, and Moses married the daughter of a Midianite priest. I found that to be very interesting. Me and my wife both did. Bore a son while being a foreigner. They both bore a son in a foreign land. Gershom is the son that they had together, Moses and Zipporah, which means foreigner. Where is that? Yeah. So the way we're doing these videos is supposing that you've read. So if you feel a little out of place, you got to read first and then watch this video. That's kind of the style that we're doing it now. All right. What else? Anybody else got anything from verses 16 to like 22? Anything? All right. Moving on. Verses 23 to 25. 23 to 25. Right at the end. Last three verses. It says here, Yahuwah, God, remembered his covenant. That is essential. We can talk all day about this. Right? Ezzy, I'm gonna let you get first dibs. Why don't you jump on this a little bit? Come on.
The only thing I had wanted to say is just we see that he's resurrecting the covenant. Here we are again. It's not It's a different generation, but it's the same promise.
Mm.
That was it.
Yeah. And is it, I like to check to see. I'm checking. I'm not going to tell you what I'm thinking. I want to see first. I want to see if it's ever called the covenant of Abraham. Genesis 17:9, Yahuwah says, my covenant. All right. Yes, they made a covenant together. But so far, I see Yahuwah saying, my covenant. So God heard the groaning, and God remembered his covenant. Then I will remember my covenant with Isaac, my covenant with Abraham. It's Yahuwah's covenant. So we could probably look at more stuff in there, but my point to bring this up is the importance of the covenant, especially for Christians. When we're talking about covenants that Yahuwah establishes, it's Yahuwah's covenant. Even the covenant that he made with Israel, we're not there yet, but in Mount Sinai or in the wilderness, Mount Horeb, God's mountain, by the way, it's called God's mountain. And all of a sudden, we have certain people in Christianity that think that covenant is done away with. When Jeremiah chapter 33, Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31 to 33, and Jeremiah chapter 33 talk about his covenant being with Israel and being restored and being with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. And he's going to put his law in their hearts. That is what the new covenant is about. And Jeremiah 33 talks about how if you can't stop the covenant that he established with the day and the night, which if you read Genesis chapter 1, the word covenant is never mentioned. But it was made. When Yahuwah established the day and the night, and to allow the sun come up and the sun to go down and the moon to come out and the stars to come out, this was a cycle. This was a covenant that Yahuwah made by himself. He didn't need the earth to agree with him and say, yes, I agree to this covenant. The earth ain't responding back into no agreement with what Yahuwah wants to do. The earth is responding and doing what Yahuwah wants it to do. And in Jeremiah 33, Yahuwah says, if you can stop the covenant that I established with the day and the night, then you can stop the covenant that I established with David, that he shall not have somebody to sit on his throne. And you can stop the covenant that I made with the Levites, those who minister to me. So again, I preach a perpetual, everlasting covenant, law of Moses, book of the law, tablets. I preach the whole nine. What I believe in this assembly is the whole package is still in effect until heaven and earth passes away. I believe it's all still in effect. That's a whole lesson in and of itself that I'm working on. I have addressed some of this in some videos that I did on the early church fathers, if you want to look into that. Ezzy, I see your hand is up.
Okay, so I have a question.
Go ahead.
A thought that comes to mind with this last verse, I mean, it really shouts out at me. In 24 and 25, it says, and Elohim heard the groaning, heard their groaning, and Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And Elohim looked on the children of Israel, and Elohim knew. I don't know what he knew, but my question is, because back in Genesis, after the flood, Yahuwah makes a covenant basically with all flesh to not have a flood again.
Which verse was that says that he knew?
The very last one, 25, and Elohim knew. What does yours say? Does yours say something different?
No, you know what? Your translation is word for word translation. Mine has God acknowledged them. The word them is in italics, which is not in the text. The word them is not there. So it really is how you said it. God acknowledged or God knew.
So it's like with all of these different chosen people, you have Abraham, you have Isaac, and now you have obviously Moshe. Is it this covenant or agreement? Is it just coming into agreement with Yahuwah and who he is? Or is the covenant when what this is speaking about here, when he says he remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is it more so the promise, or is it just, am I making sense what I'm trying to say? What I'm saying?
Nobody understands. I don't understand what you're saying.
Okay, because I'm thinking about
actually looking into the word. I was trying to look into the word while you were talking, so I got the word pulled up here that's used there in that last verse.
the new.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's yada, however you want to say it. So it is used 947 times. And in the English translations, it's used for different words. So there are different ways it's used. You see here, call, nafal, PL, Poel. These are all different things that I believe has to do with, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I'm not a specialist in Hebrew linguistics, but I think it has to do with the vowel points, if I'm not mistaken. Or it could be the consonants that's being used.
Yeah, like the endings of it and stuff.
Right. Like, for example, here, I'll just say something real quick, then I'll let Ezzy go back to her point. But so the way this word is spelled is right here. Yod, what is Dalet, and a He, Ayin. So 3 letters there. But if you actually go to the verse itself, let's go back. Make sure this is the one. Yeah, 25. So this is it right here, right? Yod, 3 letters. And if we go to the actual verse from right to left, here it is right here.
But it has the beginning.
But it has something in the beginning, right? It has a consonant that's added to the beginning. I don't remember what that does. I would have to look deeper into it. One way we could do it is, there's another website I like to use. It is, I think it's Bible Hub, interlinear. I'm gonna say Exodus 2:25. See what we get. I like this website. I kind of like their interlinear. It has a lot of nifty, cool things in it. But down here at the bottom, oh, let me zoom in. I'm sorry. I always forget. Zoom in 200. So you have how it's pronounced on top. You have the concordance numbers on top. You have the actual Hebrew, and then you have the English. And then down below, you have the grammar rules and how it's used. So took notice. This particular interlinear scripture says he took notice of them. That's a very, and I never heard that. But they're saying that this word 3045, again, which we saw over here is yada, right? 3045 yada. Over here, they're saying it is, if you click on, I didn't mean to click on it. I think this breaks it down, the linguistics of Hebrew. I'm not going to do all this right now. I'm just letting you guys, giving you guys resources so you can check this out. This is what I would do if I had more time, more thorough time to do studies, to preparation for the week. But so this word yada, if you just put the mouse over it, it gives you a little description here. It says conjunctive wa, verb, call, consecutive imperfect, third person, masculine singular. It gives you a whole thing. You're like, what the heck does that mean? That's when you would click on this to start doing your homework and start learning some Hebrew, if you're interested in this. Okay. So they give you all this information, just jam packed. This will keep you busy for a while. All right. But anyway, for whatever that's worth. So Ezzy, what was your question again?
Okay, let me try to phrase this better.
All right.
Okay, so what am I trying to say? Okay, so the thought that came to mind when I was reading this, the whole Elohim knew, it made me think of back in Genesis when Noah was coming off of the ark. Let me see. I think that was Genesis. Genesis 8 in verse 21. It says, well, I'll start in verse 20. It says, and Noah built an altar to Yahuwah and took of every clean beast and of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And in verse 21, it says, and Yahuwah smelled the soothing fragrance, and Yahuwah said in his heart, never again shall I curse the ground because of man, although the inclination of man's heart is evil from his youth, and never again smite all life as I have done. As long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and winter and summer, and day and night shall not cease. So I thought about this verse when he said Elohim knew, because it's almost like there was like a testing of Moshe's heart. I don't know, maybe I'm stretching, but he went from killing a man to rescue to now being at this well, almost humbled. I mean, he's out in the wilderness, but he still did a good deed, and maybe Yahuwah is using him for good. But the whole covenant, Yahuwah remembering the covenant, I'm just wondering if that is what the combination of Moshe's heart and, Yahuwah remembering this covenant, maybe that's what Yahuwah knew, or maybe that's what was meant by that verse. Yahuwah knowing that Moshe is going to be the one that he chooses, or what is it that Elohim knew? Like, what is the significance there of him remembering this covenant and then knowing what is being known, I guess is my question.
I'm a little conflicted on what is Yahuwah's thought process regarding this as well. So I would simply be taking a shot at it at best. But I did like that interlinear version I just saw. It says that he took notice of their, to me, it looks like he took notice of them, took notice of their situation, which then that begs to ask the question, so what was he doing before? He wasn't noticing them?
Well, I think we have to look at the part of it was the covenant with Abraham, right?
Okay.
When he fell into deep sleep. What did he note? That 400 years, I believe this is referring to 400 years and stuff.
Okay.
That after 400 years, your people will be enslaved. So this time has to come up. They will be under harsh treatment, and then I would take them out. So him knowing the time frame, like him remember, because a lot of times the scripture says, and Yahuwah remembered, and he remembered, and he remembered. So he was remembering the covenant that was established way back when with Abraham, where this was now the time.
It's not like he forgets, though.
No, but this is now the time period, I would say, where he knows that the cries have ascended, and it's time where Yahuwah becomes.
That's the part we have to bring up too.
Mm-hmm.
As he is go ahead, you can continue, but this plays a role too. God is sovereign, number one. Yahuwah is sovereign. He knows the past, present, and future. He's got everything controlled. He's got plans, right? He knows everything. But there is some free will of man. That plays a role in things as well. And in verse 23, it says, now it happened in the process of time that the king of Mitsrayim died. Then the children of Israel groaned because of the bondage, and they cried out, and their cry came up to God because of the bondage. It's almost like my wife was saying this. It's almost like Yahuwah has a thermometer for different things. One of them is the sins of I'm just saying a phrase that I remember from scripture. The sins of the Amorites have not reached to heaven yet. Right? Do you remember hearing that phrase? It's all in here? Where is it at? Show me. Also, until the Gentiles, I think Romans 11, I think it talks about, be fulfilled. So there's these thermometers Yahuwah has. Like when it reaches that thermometer, then he acts on what he was saying he was going to do. Also, when people, again, I was talking about numbers, right? Numbers, the power of numbers. Imagine if everybody was at total peace and hey man, hey, at least we getting bread, at least we getting food, brother. You better be happy, man. We're here in Egypt, bro. I'm here to work. You better be happy, brother. Rejoice in the Lord, brother. Everybody rejoicing, everybody happy. But the fact that it wasn't just 5 people that were upset and struggling and why is this happening? there was a number of Israelites. The numbers makes a difference, you know? So likewise, when we're praying, when we're intercession, praying, right? When we're all praying for a specific cause, sometimes Yahuwah won't act until there's a certain number of people that call. Yahuwah will move on that. But that's just a thought that's going through my mind right now. I can say a little bit more, but I'm gonna let Jeff go. Jeff, jump in the jump rope.
Yeah, the cause to remember. I looked it up, as I'm sure you did too. The word zakar that comes up. It's to remember, to recall, to call to mind, to cause to remember, to cause to be remembered, right? And it says its origin is a primitive root that means to properly mark so as to be recognized. Now, if you think about when this is happening, it's right before they're about to be brought out and be given their Sabbath as their mark, right? So as of yet, they're still unmarked, right? And so it's almost like for his ability to recognize them, they need to be marked, which in Egypt, they have not been given the Sabbath yet, right? Or in our case, the Ruach, you know, as a mark. But it's almost as though the people need to bear his mark to be recognized, because it happens at Passover where he has to have a signifier as well. We know that Yah is all-knowing, you know, and he knows these things, so it's a little off-putting to see that he needs things marked to be remembered, you know, but he obviously is just, we don't understand him fully, obviously, you know, and how he thinks, or the process that he goes through. But I think it's interesting that the word to cause to be remembered is from the root to be marked. We're speaking of a time before they're brought to Sinai and given the Sabbath as their mark of their belief. So maybe that has something to do with it, them having that spiritual mark or that sign that they are believers yet.
Interesting.
That's just riffing on the root words and the words that make it up. That's all.
I wasn't really expecting an answer. I just kind of wanted to know your thoughts, because when I saw that, it was like, there's things that, you know, can kind of like new information or a new revelation. It just, I don't know, that struck me as interesting.
Yeah, I think like a marriage, like marriage covenant, marriage vows, how stuff might happen throughout the marriage. Maybe the waters are getting a little, you know, the relationship's getting a little stale. And sometimes, and I'm not saying Yahuwah is like this. I'm just trying to use a human example. Yahuwah is not a man, okay? He became a man, but he was a perfect man. So he wasn't like flawed like me, okay? You know, the relationship might start getting a little stale. And sometimes you need to recall to remembrance those vows that you made. You know what I mean? And you bring it back to remembrance. You know, I'm not saying that that's how Yahuwah is like, again, like Yahuwah forgot, but maybe Yahuwah knew he was waiting for a certain time, but like right before he's getting ready to enact what he's getting ready to do, he's saying, I'm now going to recall the covenant that I made. Not like I forgot. It's not like he forgot. Maybe it was something he was waiting for. Maybe he was waiting for the cries. Maybe they got so complacent. Maybe they got, you know, maybe they got distracted with some stuff in Egypt. You know what I mean? And they lost I don't know. I'm not sure. But I think this gives more credit to Yahuwah's sovereignty than it does anything else. This gives credit to Yahuwah's, the fact that he's in control and he changes the tide when he wants to change the tide. He will allow suffering to persist as long as he wants. But I do think we play a role in that. And I think that numbers is an important thing in crying out to Yahuwah. Or sometimes in this case, it's not they're crying out to Yahuwah, they're just suffering. In this case, it sounds like they're just groaning. It says that he heard their cries, he heard their groans. They're crying, they're struggling. And he decided to step in and change the tide on that. But that's all I got. What's this? That's it for chapter 2. That's it for chapter 2. Gonna call it a day. Yeah, it's beautiful outside. I think we should enjoy this beautiful weather. But yeah, chapters 1 and 2. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Shalom. I'll see you guys on the next one. So study chapter 3, 4, 5, however far you can get. Just keep studying ahead. All right. And we're gonna try this thing out, this new format. All right, shalom. Bye.